Could someone close be dragging you down? Hey there, pause. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something's off with someone you care about? Maybe it's a friend you've known for years, a family member you see at every gathering, or even a partner you share your days with, and you can't quite put your finger on it, but deep down, you wonder, are they secretly pulling me into chaos instead of lifting me up? It's a tough thought, I know, one that might make your stomach twist a little, sending a shiver of doubt through you as you replay moments in your mind. But stick with me, because today we're peeling back the layers on something that could change how you navigate your relationships forever. We're diving into the world of hidden toxicity, those subtle, sneaky signs that someone in your life might not have your best interests at heart, cloaked behind friendly smiles or well-rehearsed excuses, and we're doing it with a twist of ancient wisdom from the Stoics, folks like Seneca and Epictetus who knew a thing or two about staying steady in a stormy world. These philosophers weren't just thinkers, they were survivors, crafting a way to live with purpose and calm no matter what came their way. They believed the people around you should be your allies, pushing you toward a life of virtue, think wisdom to guide your choices, courage to face your fears, and kindness to build bridges, rather than anchors dragging you into drama, distress, or a cycle of negativity you didn't sign up to carry. But what happens when that's not the case? What do you do when the ones closest to you, the ones you'd expect to have your back, start to feel like a weight, pulling you under when you're trying to swim toward something better? Maybe it's the friend who always seems to dodge your struggles, or the relative whose words leave a sting, or the partner who leaves you questioning your worth. It's not always obvious, and that's what makes it so tricky. Sometimes the harm hides in plain sight, wrapped in familiarity or affection. That's where this journey comes in. I'm taking you on a deep dive through 9 telltale signs that someone might be a toxic presence, masking their true colors behind smiles or flimsy apologies. We'll walk through each one together, blending Stoic insights, those practical, grounded lessons from the past, with stories from my own life to show you what this looks like up close, how it feels when you're in the thick of it. I'll share the moments I've stumbled, the lessons I've learned, and practical steps to spot these red flags and protect your peace, because you deserve relationships that don't leave you drained. By the end of this, you'll have a toolkit to build connections that lift you higher, not pull you down into the muck, and maybe even find a bit more strength in yourself along the way, a resilience you didn't know you had. This isn't just about pointing fingers, it's about empowering you to take control, to choose who gets to walk beside you on this wild ride called life. So, if you're ready to uncover the hidden chaos and arm yourself with some timeless wisdom that stood the test of centuries, let's get started. Oh, and if this resonates with you, if it hits a nerve or sparks a thought, hit that subscribe button. We're on this growth journey together, a community of people looking to live wiser, and I'd love to have you along for the ride, sharing the ups and downs as we go. Let's kick off with the first sign. When someone thrives on your struggles, pause, because that's where the masks often start to slip, and it's a clue we can't ignore. Ready? Let's dive in. Thriving on your struggles. Let's start with something that might catch you off guard. Pause. Ever notice how some people seem to perk up when you're down? Picture this. You're having a rough day, maybe you bombed a work project, your carefully crafted presentation falling flat in front of the team, or you hit a personal snag, like a disagreement with a loved one that's left you rattled. You open up to someone you trust, hoping for a kind word or a listening ear, craving that gentle nudge of support to help you through. A real friend, someone who's got your back, would lean in, offer a nod of understanding, maybe even help you brainstorm a way out, suggesting a new approach or just sitting with you in the mess. They'd say something like, "I've been there, let's figure this out together," their voice a lifeline in your storm. But then there's the other kind, the ones who don't. Instead of comfort, you get a smirk, a little laugh that feels out of place, or a comment that lands like a jab, something sharp like, "Wow, you really messed that up, huh?" It's as if they're secretly enjoying your stumble, sipping on your misfortune like it's their morning coffee. It's weird, right? That reaction isn't just awkward, it's a window into their soul, showing a lack of empathy, that basic human knack for feeling with someone else, for stepping into your shoes and sharing the weight of your struggle. The Stoics had a lot to say about this, and they didn't mince words. They saw empathy as a glue that holds communities together, a vital force that binds us in the face of life's inevitable hardships. They believed that supporting each other through trials, whether it's a failed project or a broken heart, builds us up, making us wiser, stronger, and more resilient with every shared step. For them, life's tough moments were chances to practice virtues like kindness and understanding, to grow as individuals and as a collective. But when someone gets a kick out of your pain, when they light up at your low moments, that's a red flag, a sharp departure from their ideals, a signal they're not aligned with the Stoic vision of mutual support. I felt this myself. Pause. I once shared a setback with a coworker, thinking they'd understand since we'd been through similar stuff, both of us navigating the same high-pressure job. I told them about a project that went south, expecting a bit of camaraderie, maybe some advice. Instead, I got this sly grin, their eyes glinting with something I couldn't place at first, followed by a cutting remark, "Well, that's what happens when you try too hard." It was like my struggle was their entertainment, a little show they could enjoy from the sidelines. It stung, a sharp pang in my chest, and over time, I noticed it kept happening. Anytime I was vulnerable, anytime I let my guard down, they'd find a way to twist it into something they could laugh at, a pattern that left me feeling exposed and raw. It made me second-guess opening up, shrinking back from sharing anything real, and that's when I realized this wasn't friendship. It was something darker, something that drained me instead of filling me up. So, what do you do when you spot this kind of reaction? The Stoics would say start by paying attention, really tuning into those moments when you're at your lowest. Notice how they react when you're down. Do they lift you with a warm word, a hand on your shoulder, or do they lean in for the kill, their tone dripping with satisfaction at your expense? If it's the latter, take a step back, a deliberate move to protect your heart. Guard your energy by limiting those chats, choosing carefully who you share your struggles with, and seek out people who actually care, who reflect the Stoic value of mutual support. It's not about cutting them off cold, slamming the door with a dramatic exit. It's about guarding your peace, creating space for connections that nurture you. I started leaning on others who showed real compassion, friends who'd sit with me in the mess and help me find a way forward, and it felt like a weight lifted, like I could breathe again, the air around me lighter and freer. That leads us to our next sign. When someone plays with your emotions like a puppet master, pause, because that lack of empathy often opens the door to deeper games. Let's keep going. The puppet master's game. Okay, let's shift gears. Pause. Have you ever felt like someone's pulling your strings, making you dance to their tune without you even realizing it? We're talking emotional manipulation here, and it's sneakier than you'd think, slipping into your life like a shadow you don't notice until it's too late. Imagine someone always playing the victim, spinning a tale of woe that lays on the guilt trip until you're rushing to fix their problems, dropping your own plans to be their savior. Or maybe they blame you for their messes, twisting things so you feel responsible for their bad day. Suddenly, their missed deadline or sour mood is your fault, and you're left scrambling to make it right. It's a deliberate move, a calculated way to control you, keeping you off balance, and it can leave you exhausted, wondering why you're always the one bending over backwards, stretching yourself thin while they sit back and watch. It's like you're a puppet on their stage, and they're the master, pulling the levers with every sob story or pointed finger, leaving you drained and questioning your own worth. The Stoics would call this out fast, and they wouldn't hold back. They prized emotional resilience, that rock-solid inner strength that keeps you steady no matter what's thrown your way, whether it's a friend's sob story or a partner's blame game. They taught that true freedom comes from within, not from letting others dictate your feelings or pull you into their chaos. You get to choose how you respond, and that's your power, a shield you can raise against their manipulations. They believed in mastering your reactions, staying calm and clear-headed, so you're not swayed by someone else's drama. I've been caught in this trap. Pause. I had a friend who'd guilt me into helping every time they hit a snag, their voice dripping with desperation as they'd say things like, "You're the only one I can count on," even when I was stretched thin, juggling my own challenges. I'd drop everything, rushing to their aid, thinking it was what friends do. But then, when I needed them, maybe a late-night call after a tough day or a favor to lean on, they'd vanish, leaving me hanging, their silence louder than any excuse. It took me a while to see the pattern, to connect the dots between their pleas and my exhaustion, but once I did, I felt used, like a tool in their game, a pawn they moved at will. The Stoics would say to step back, to reclaim that inner strength by staying rational, not letting their words or tears dictate your next move, and that's exactly what I needed to do. How do you handle it when you find yourself tangled in this web? Start by spotting the signs, those guilt trips that tug at your heartstrings, the blame shifting that flips the script to make you the villain, or that pressure that feels off, like a weight you didn't ask to carry. Pay attention to how you feel after talking to them. Do you leave lighter or heavier? That's your clue. Then, talk to them calmly, setting your boundaries with a steady voice, something like, "I care about you, but I can't always fix this for you. I need to look after myself too." It's not about confrontation, it's about drawing a line, showing them where your limits lie. If they keep pushing, ignoring your needs and doubling down on their tactics, the Stoics would encourage distance, protecting your emotional independence like a fortress around your peace. I did that. Pause. I sat them down one day, laid it out as gently as I could, and when they kept leaning on me without giving back, I pulled away, scaling back our time together. It freed me to connect with people who respect my limits, who don't see me as a means to an end, and it felt like breaking free from those strings, like I could finally move on my own terms. That brings us to our next sign. When someone's temper turns everything into a battlefield, pause, because that loss of control can ignite a whole new kind of chaos. Let's keep going. The battlefield of a quick temper. Let's dive into something a bit fiery. Pause. Have you ever been around someone who explodes at the drop of a hat? 1 minute it's a small disagreement, maybe a casual comment about whose turn it is to do the dishes, and the next, they're yelling like it's a war zone, their voice booming through the room as if you've just declared an all-out battle. This quick temper isn't just annoying, it's a glaring sign they've lost the reins on their emotions, letting anger gallop wild while you're left scrambling to keep up. It can turn your relationship into a minefield, where every word feels like a step that might trigger an explosion, leaving you tense and on edge, never sure when the next outburst will hit. The Stoics were all about self-control, seeing it as the key to inner peace, a steady hand on the tiller of your soul no matter how rough the seas get. They believed that by mastering your reactions, choosing calm over chaos, you keep the storm outside from wrecking your calm within, creating a ripple of harmony that benefits everyone around you, like a quiet lake reflecting a clear sky. But when someone's temper flares up constantly, it's the opposite of that serene picture. It disrupts everything, shattering the peace like a rock through a window, making you walk on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing lest you set off another round of fireworks. You start second-guessing yourself, swallowing your thoughts to avoid the blast, and that tension builds up, turning your shared space into a pressure cooker. I've been there. Pause. I had a roommate who'd snap over the tiniest things, like if dinner was 5 minutes late, the aroma of the meal still wafting through the kitchen when they'd storm in, face red, demanding to know why I couldn't get it right. It'd escalate into a full-blown argument, their voice rising with every word, leaving the house tense for hours, the air thick with unspoken frustration. I'd try to smooth it over, offering apologies or quick fixes, but it wore me down, chipping away at my patience until I realized their lack of control was poisoning our space, turning a home into a battleground where I felt like I was always dodging bullets. The Stoics would say this is a break from their virtue of composure, a signal that this person has strayed from the path of inner strength, and it's a clear warning to tread carefully or step away before the damage gets deeper. What's the move when you're stuck with someone whose temper runs this hot? Start by noticing the pattern. If they can't calm down, if every little hiccup turns into a hurricane, it's a cue to protect yourself, to shield your own peace from their storm. Maybe suggest they work on it, opening a gentle conversation like, "I've noticed things get heated fast. Could we find a way to cool it down together?" It's not about blaming them, it's about inviting change. But if that doesn't stick, if the outbursts keep coming like clockwork, limit your exposure. Step back during the heat of the moment, find a quiet corner to regroup, or reduce the time you spend in their orbit. I started keeping my distance during their outbursts, slipping away to my room or stepping outside until the air cleared, and it gave me room to breathe, a chance to reclaim my calm. Over time, I found myself connecting with calmer souls, people who didn't turn every disagreement into a war, and that shift felt like a breath of fresh air, a return to the harmony the Stoics championed. That flows into our next sign, when trust gets shattered like glass. Pause, because a lack of control often paves the way for deeper cracks in your bond. Let's keep moving forward. Shattering trust like glass. Trust. Pause. It's the heartbeat of any relationship, right? It's that steady rhythm that keeps you feeling safe, knowing you can rely on someone to be there, to hold your secrets close, to show up when they say they will. But what happens when that rhythm falters, when someone lies or breaks promises, leaving you questioning everything? Your bond, your judgment, even your ability to trust again. It's like a glass shattering into 1,000 jagged pieces, each shard a reminder of what was lost, cutting deeper with every memory of what you thought you had. The Stoics saw integrity and honesty as non-negotiable, the bedrock of a virtuous life, a foundation so solid that nothing could shake it. They believed a wise person lives true to their word, no matter the pressure, no matter the temptation to take the easy way out. That consistency, that unwavering commitment to truth, builds a community where people can rely on each other, where you know your neighbor has your back just as you have theirs, creating a web of support that holds everyone up. But when someone betrays that trust, maybe they spill a secret you whispered in confidence, letting it slip at a party for a cheap laugh, or they ditch plans without a second thought, leaving you waiting at a restaurant with an empty chair and a sinking heart. It cracks that foundation, sending ripples that hurt more than just you. It shakes the trust others have in them too, fraying the ties that bind your circle together, making everyone a little warier, a little less open. I felt that crack, that moment when trust shatters. Pause. I had a friend who promised to keep a confidence, something deeply personal I'd shared in a quiet moment, believing they'd guard it like I would for them. I told them about a fear I was wrestling with, something I wasn't ready for the world to know, and they nodded, their eyes earnest, saying, "I've got you, my lips are sealed." But then, weeks later, in the heat of an argument over something trivial, they threw it back in my face, using my vulnerability as a weapon to win the fight. "You're always so scared of failing, that's why you're stuck," they said, their words slicing through me like a blade. It hit hard, a punch to the gut that left me reeling, making me doubt my judgment, wondering who I could trust if not them. I replayed every conversation, every shared moment, questioning how I'd misread them so badly, how I'd let them in only to get burned. The Stoics would say this is a serious flaw, a deep crack in their character, a sign to rethink that bond, to ask whether this relationship aligns with the life of virtue they championed. They'd remind us that trust isn't just a nice-to-have, it's the glue that holds our connections together, and without it, everything starts to crumble. So, how do you deal with a betrayal like that? The Stoics would guide us to approach it with wisdom, not rage. Start by paying attention to the lies or broken promises. Notice the patterns, the little ways they let you down, like canceling plans last minute or fibbing about why they couldn't show up. Approach it with a clear head, sitting them down and asking for honesty, saying something like, "I need you to be straight with me. When you break your word, it hurts, and I want us to do better." It's not about accusing, it's about giving them a chance to step up. But if it keeps happening, if the lies pile up or the promises keep breaking like brittle twigs, consider stepping back, creating space between you and their chaos. The Stoics would see this as a way to protect your peace, to surround yourself with people who live with integrity. I did that. Pause. I pulled back from that friend, limiting our talks, and it opened space for people I could count on, folks whose actions matched their words, aligning with Stoic ideals of trust. It felt like rebuilding a foundation, one steady brick at a time. That leads us to our next sign, dodging responsibility like it's a game. Pause. Because a lack of trust often ties to a refusal to own up. Let's keep going. Dodging responsibility like a game. Let's talk about owning up. Pause. Because when someone shirks responsibility, it's like they're playing dodgeball with the truth, ducking and weaving to avoid getting hit by their own mistakes. It's frustrating, isn't it? You're trying to build something solid, a friendship, a work relationship, or even a family bond, but they keep tossing the blame your way, leaving you to catch the fallout. The Stoics valued self-reflection deeply, seeing it as a duty, a sacred part of growing into a better version of yourself. They believed that admitting your faults, owning up to the messes you've made, and working to fix them isn't just about clearing the air, it builds character, strengthening your integrity, and fortifies the bonds you share with others. When you take responsibility, you show the people around you that you're committed to doing right by them, that you value the trust they've placed in you. It's like laying bricks in a wall of mutual respect, each honest moment making it stronger. But when someone blames others or denies their errors, maybe a coworker pinning a missed deadline on you, claiming you didn't send the files when you know you did, it breaks that trust, creating a toxic loop where resentment festers and communication crumbles, leaving everyone stuck in a cycle of finger-pointing and frustration. I've been in that loop, and let me tell you, it's exhausting. Pause. My old boss was a master at dodging accountability, always pointing fingers when projects failed, no matter how clear it was that they dropped the ball. I remember one time we were racing against a tight deadline, and they forgot to send a crucial update to the client, leaving our team scrambling at the last minute. When the client called us out, my boss didn't hesitate. They turned to me in front of everyone and said, "You were supposed to handle that communication, weren't you?" My jaw dropped. I'd sent the files days ago, and they knew it. But instead of owning their oversight, they threw me under the bus, making me the scapegoat while they walked away unscathed. It left me frustrated, my stomach churning with irritation as I tried to defend myself, but the damage was done. The team's trust in me took a hit, and the atmosphere turned sour. It happened again and again, a pattern of blame shifting that made every project a battle, every mistake a game of who could dodge the fastest. The Stoics would call this a departure from growth, a refusal to engage in the self-reflection that leads to wisdom and strength. They'd say it's not just a personal failing, it's a ripple that disrupts the harmony of the group, making it harder for everyone to move forward together. So, What's the fix when you're dealing with someone who treats responsibility like a hot potato? The Stoics would guide us to approach it with clarity and calm. Start by calling it out gently, setting expectations for honesty without letting emotions take the wheel. You might say something like, "I notice the blame keeps coming my way for things I didn't do. Can we talk about how we take responsibility so we can work better together?" It's not about starting a fight. It's about opening a door for change, giving them a chance to step up. But if they won't budge, if they keep deflecting or denying, the Stoics would encourage you to distance yourself, to protect your peace and align with people who share your values. I did that. Pause. I had a quiet word with my boss, laying out how their actions were affecting the team, but when nothing changed, I knew I had to make a move. I switched teams, finding colleagues who owned their part, who'd admit when they messed up and worked to fix it, and it felt like a fresh start, a breath of clean air after being stuck in a smog of excuses. That shift reminded me how much lighter life feels when you're surrounded by accountability. That brings us to our next sign, the slow trap of isolation. Pause, because dodging responsibility can often pave the way for more controlling behaviors. Let's keep going. The slow trap of isolation. Isolation. Pause. It's a quiet trap, isn't it? It doesn't announce itself with a loud bang or a dramatic showdown. It creeps in softly, like a fog rolling over a lake, so subtle you don't even notice until you're completely enveloped, cut off from the shore. Picture someone slowly turning you against your friends or family, planting doubts like tiny seeds that grow into sprawling vines of mistrust. They might say things like, "They don't really get you, you know," their tone casual but pointed, or, "I'm not sure they have your best interests at heart. Don't you think they're holding you back?" At first, it sounds like concern, like they're looking out for you, but over time, those little comments stack up, building a wall between you and the people who've always been your anchor. Before you know it, you're leaning on just them, your world shrinking smaller and smaller until they're the only one left in it, the sole voice in your ear, the only hand you feel you can hold. It's a deliberate move, a way to control you by cutting away your support system, leaving you vulnerable and dependent, and it's one of the sneakiest forms of manipulation out there. The Stoics, especially Seneca, had a lot to say about the power of community, and they saw it as our strength, a network that fuels our growth and keeps us grounded. Seneca, in particular, wrote about how our connections, our friends, our family, even our mentors, are like a garden we cultivate, each relationship a plant that helps us bloom, offering wisdom, support, and shared laughter to nourish our souls. They believed that being part of a community isn't just nice to have, it's essential to our nature as social beings, a vital piece of living a virtuous life. It's through these bonds that we learn, grow, and find the courage to face life's challenges, drawing strength from the collective wisdom and love around us. But when someone cuts you off from that network, when they isolate you by sowing doubt or driving wedges, they weaken your independence, stripping away the very things that make you resilient. It's a red flag, a glaring warning sign that they're more interested in control than in your well-being, because a truly supportive person would encourage your connections, not dismantle them. I've seen this creep into my own life, and it's a slow burn that's hard to spot until you're deep in it. Pause. I had a friend who started hinting that my family was unsupportive, their words subtle at first but growing bolder over time. They'd say things like, "Your parents don't really understand your dreams, they're always so critical," or, "I think your siblings are jealous of you, they don't seem happy when you succeed." At first, I brushed it off, thinking they were just being protective, maybe seeing something I couldn't. But as the months went by, those comments started to sink in, making me question the people who'd always been my rock. I'd call my family less, skip gatherings because I felt awkward, and slowly, I found myself pulling away, my world narrowing until I was leaning on this friend for everything. Advice, comfort, even my sense of reality. I felt alone, adrift in a sea of doubt, and I didn't even realize how isolated I'd become until one day I looked around and saw how small my circle had shrunk. The Stoics would say to spot this early, to catch those seeds of doubt before they take root and choke out your connections. They'd urge you to reconnect with your circle, reach out to those friends, call your family, rebuild the bridges, and if the person isolating you resists, if they push back or guilt you for branching out, it's a sign to step back from them entirely. I did that. Pause. I started calling my family again, showing up to dinners, and when my friend got upset, saying I was choosing them over her, I knew I had to set boundaries. Reclaiming those ties felt like waking up from a long, foggy sleep, the warmth of my loved ones like sunlight breaking through the clouds, reminding me who I was and where I belonged. That leads us to our next sign, turning your secrets into weapons. Pause, because isolation often sets the stage for even deeper betrayals. Let's keep going. Turning secrets into weapons. The sting of betrayal, when someone twists your deepest confidences into a weapon, cuts to the bone. It's a wound that throbs with a pain that's hard to articulate, a raw ache that lingers long after the moment passes. When you open your heart to someone, when you let them glimpse the unfiltered parts of you, your fears, your dreams, the vulnerabilities you guard so fiercely, it's a sacred act of trust. You're saying, "I believe in you enough to show you my soul." The Stoics, with their timeless wisdom, cautioned against sharing too freely. They urged discernment, advising that we reserve such intimacy for those who've proven they can honor it. Not everyone deserves a front-row seat to your inner world. They knew that protecting your peace means choosing carefully who you let in, ensuring they'll cherish your vulnerability rather than exploit it. But when someone takes that trust and turns it against you, when they weaponize your secrets to wound or manipulate, it's a betrayal that strips you bare, leaving you feeling as though your own words have been forged into chains to bind you. I learned this lesson through a searing experience that still echoes in my memory. I had a confidant, someone I considered a safe haven, a friend I'd known for years. Over time, I'd come to trust them with my deepest thoughts, believing they'd hold them with care. One day, I shared a fear that had been gnawing at me, a quiet, gnawing worry about not being good enough, a doubt I'd barely admitted to myself. As I spoke, they listened intently, nodding with what I took for empathy. In that moment, I felt lighter, as if I'd unburdened myself of a weight I'd carried too long. But that relief was short-lived. During a later disagreement, over something trivial, a forgotten plan, a minor miscommunication, their tone shifted, sharp and cutting. "You're always so insecure," they spat. "No wonder you can't handle this." My vulnerability, the fear I'd entrusted to them, had been twisted into a dagger, wielded to win an argument, to diminish me. The words landed like a blow, leaving me exposed, as if my innermost self had been laid bare for all to see. The hurt wasn't just in the moment, it was the lingering sense of violation, the realization that my trust had been weaponized. The Stoics would have seen this as a clear call to action. They'd counsel setting boundaries swiftly, guarding your heart by limiting what you share with someone who'd use it to harm you. They believed our peace is a treasure worth protecting, that we owe no one access to our inner world if they can't treat it with reverence. I took their wisdom to heart. Though it pained me, I pulled back from that friendship. Conversations that once flowed freely became surface level, carefully curated to shield myself from further hurt. I missed the closeness we'd once shared, the ease of our connection, but the cost of unguarded openness was too high. That boundary became my shield, giving me space to heal and rebuild trust with others, those who'd proven they could hold my vulnerabilities with care, not turn them into ammunition. This betrayal revealed another layer of hurt, the absence of remorse. Often, those who wield your confidences as weapons show no regret for the pain they've caused. They may brush it off, justify their actions, or worse, act as if you're overreacting. This lack of accountability deepens the wound, making you question not just the relationship but your own judgment. The Stoics would remind us to focus on what we can control, our own actions, our own boundaries, and to let go of those who show no willingness to repair the harm they've done. Moving forward, I became more discerning, choosing confidants who demonstrated integrity, who valued my trust as much as I valued theirs. That shift wasn't just about protecting myself, it was about honoring my own worth, ensuring that my heart was shared only with those who'd treat it with the respect it deserves. No remorse for their wrongs. The absence of remorse when someone wrongs you is a bitter pill to swallow. It's not just the initial hurt, whether a lie, a betrayal, or a careless act, that stings. It's the indifference afterward that poisons the relationship, seeping into its foundation like a slow toxin. The Stoics viewed remorse as a cornerstone of virtue, a sign of self-awareness and a willingness to grow. They believed that owning one's mistakes was a step toward wisdom, a chance to align actions with integrity. But when someone shrugs off their wrong, dismissing a lie or a hurt as if it's inconsequential, it reveals a disregard for both you and the bond you share. It's a red flag, a signal that they prioritize their own comfort over accountability, leaving you to carry the weight of their actions alone. I felt this sting firsthand. A close friend once lied to me about something significant, a breach of trust that shook the ground beneath our friendship. When I confronted them, expecting some acknowledgement or regret, they brushed it off with a casual, "It's not a big deal, you're overreacting." Their nonchalance was a second blow, sharper than the lie itself. It wasn't just that they deceived me, it was that they saw no need to make amends, no reason to reflect on the harm they'd caused. The Stoics would consider this a clear signal to protect your peace by creating distance. They taught that we cannot control others' actions, only our own responses, and that safeguarding our inner tranquility means choosing carefully who we allow close. In this case, it meant stepping back, limiting the space I gave that friend in my life to shield myself from further dismissals. This lack of remorse often ties to a deeper pattern, one that leads to the ultimate sign of a toxic dynamic: trampling your boundaries. When someone wrongs you and feels no regret, they're less likely to respect the boundaries you set to protect yourself. For the Stoics, boundaries were a form of self-respect, a way to honor your worth by defining what you'll tolerate and what you won't. But those who dismiss their mistakes often see your boundaries as obstacles to sidestep rather than lines to respect. In my case, after the lie, I tried to set clear expectations with my friend, explaining that honesty was non-negotiable for me. Yet their dismissive attitude persisted, and small slights continued, each a subtle disregard for the trust I'd asked them to rebuild. It was exhausting, like trying to hold water in a sieve. The Stoics would advise that such patterns demand firm action. They'd remind us that our peace is worth more than clinging to a relationship that requires constant defense. I took this to heart, gradually distancing myself from that friend. It wasn't about punishment or resentment. It was about choosing my well-being over a connection that no longer served it. I sought out others who valued growth, people who saw mistakes as opportunities to learn rather than burdens to dismiss. These new connections were a balm, built on mutual respect and accountability, where apologies weren't just words but promises to do better. They showed me what it means to be surrounded by those who honor your trust, not exploit it. This shift wasn't easy. Letting go of a long-standing friendship brought its own grief, a quiet mourning for what once was. But it was also liberating, a reclamation of my own space and serenity. The Stoics would nod in approval, emphasizing that we flourish best when surrounded by those who uplift our virtues, not undermine them. By stepping away, I created room for relationships that aligned with my values, ones where remorse, when needed, was a bridge to healing, not a door slammed shut. This hard-earned lesson taught me to value my peace and guard it fiercely, ensuring that those I let close are worthy of that privilege. Trampling your boundaries. Boundaries are the invisible lines we draw around ourselves to protect our peace, define our values, and preserve our sense of self. They are personal, unique to each individual, and rooted in what we hold sacred: our autonomy, our dignity, our right to exist without being overrun by the demands or disregard of others. When someone crosses these lines, whether through a careless word, a deliberate push, or a blatant violation, it's more than a momentary slight. It's a fracture in the foundation of trust. The Stoics, with their emphasis on self-mastery and inner tranquility, saw boundaries as essential to living a virtuous life. To them, respecting another's autonomy was a reflection of one's own integrity, and failing to honor those boundaries revealed a lack of self-awareness or regard for others. When someone repeatedly stomps over your limits, ignoring topics you've asked to keep private, dismissing needs you've clearly expressed, or pushing past your emotional or physical comfort, it erodes the mutual respect that any healthy relationship requires. This disregard, left unchecked, can unravel even the strongest bonds, leaving you to question not just the relationship but your own sense of worth. The Stoics believed that we cannot control the actions of others, only our responses to them. This principle is particularly poignant when it comes to boundaries. Setting a boundary is an act of self-respect, a declaration that your needs matter and that you are unwilling to sacrifice your well-being for the sake of someone else's comfort or agenda. But maintaining those boundaries, especially in the face of resistance, requires courage and clarity. When someone ignores your limits, perhaps by revisiting a topic you've explicitly asked to avoid or pressuring you to engage in ways that feel invasive, it's not just a breach of trust, it's a signal that they prioritize their own desires over your autonomy. The Stoics would argue that such behavior reflects a lack of virtue, as it shows an unwillingness to practice self-restraint or to value the well-being of others. Over time, these violations accumulate, each one a small but significant blow to the relationship's foundation, until what was once a source of connection becomes a source of exhaustion. I've experienced this firsthand with a relative who, for years, disregarded boundaries I tried to establish. It started subtly: comments about personal matters I'd asked to keep private, questions that probed too deeply into areas I'd marked as off-limits. At first, I brushed it off, assuming good intentions or chalking it up to a lack of awareness. But the pattern persisted, and each instance felt like a small invasion, a reminder that my clearly stated needs were being ignored. The Stoics would point out that this wasn't just about the specific actions, It was about what those actions revealed, a lack of respect for my autonomy and a refusal to engage in the self-reflection necessary to change. Confronting this relative was uncomfortable, but necessary. I had to articulate my boundaries with unmistakable clarity. Certain topics were not up for discussion, and my need for space was non-negotiable. The act of setting those limits wasn't just about protecting myself from further oversteps. It was about reclaiming my peace and asserting my right to define the terms of our relationship. The Stoics would approve of this approach, as they viewed the preservation of inner tranquility as paramount. They taught that external events, such as someone's disregard for your boundaries, cannot disturb your peace unless you allow them to. By setting and enforcing boundaries, you take control of your emotional response, refusing to let someone else's actions dictate your state of mind. In my case, establishing firm boundaries with my relative brought a profound sense of calm. It wasn't that the relationship ended. Rather, it shifted to a place where I felt safer, where my needs were no longer sidelined. The Stoics would see this as a victory of reason over reactivity, a choice to prioritize virtue, self-respect, justice, and wisdom, over the temptation to appease or avoid conflict. This shift didn't erase the discomfort of confrontation, but it did restore a sense of agency, reminding me that I have the power to shape my relationships in ways that align with my values. This experience also highlighted a broader truth about boundaries. They are not just about keeping others out, but about inviting in those who respect your worth. The Stoics emphasized the importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift your virtues, who challenge you to grow while honoring your autonomy. When someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries, they demonstrate a disregard for this principle, revealing a dynamic that is unlikely to foster mutual growth. In contrast, relationships built on mutual respect, where boundaries are acknowledged and honored, create a space for trust to flourish. After setting boundaries with my relative, I began to notice the difference in my other relationships. Friends who listened when I expressed a need, who respected my limits without question, became anchors in my life. These connections, grounded in accountability and care, showed me what it means to be valued not just for what I offer but for who I am, boundaries and all. Of course, setting boundaries is rarely easy. It often involves difficult conversations, the risk of misunderstanding, or even the loss of relationships that cannot adapt to your needs. For me, enforcing boundaries with my relative meant accepting that our dynamic might never be as close as it once was. There was a quiet grief in that realization, a mourning for the ease we'd lost. But the Stoics would remind us that such losses are sometimes necessary for growth. They'd argue that clinging to a relationship that demands you compromise your peace is a betrayal of your own virtue. By choosing to protect my boundaries, I wasn't just shielding myself from harm. I was creating space for relationships that align with my values, ones where respect is a given, not a negotiation. This process of setting and maintaining boundaries taught me a deeper lesson about self-worth. The Stoics believed that true happiness comes from living in accordance with nature, which includes honoring your own dignity. Boundaries are a practical expression of that philosophy, a way to say, I am worthy of respect, and I will not settle for less. Each time I upheld a boundary, I reinforced this truth, building a stronger sense of self that no one could undermine. The calm that followed wasn't just the absence of conflict, it was the presence of clarity, a quiet confidence that I could navigate relationships without losing myself. In the end, boundaries are about more than just protecting your peace, they're about defining the life you want to live. The Stoics would see them as a tool for cultivating virtue, a way to practice wisdom, courage, and justice in your interactions with others. By setting firm boundaries with my relative, I not only reclaimed my tranquility but also learned to value relationships that honor my autonomy. This journey, though challenging, brought me closer to the Stoic ideal of a life well lived, one where my peace is guarded fiercely and my connections reflect the virtues I hold dear. That, to me, is the true power of boundaries. They don't just keep harm at bay. They create a space where trust, respect, and growth can thrive. Building a Stoic sanctuary. Navigating toxic relationships and cultivating a life rooted in Stoic virtue requires intention, reflection, and decisive action. The key takeaway is clear. By recognizing the signs of toxicity, setting firm boundaries, and prioritizing your inner peace, you can build a life surrounded by relationships that uplift and inspire you. This journey isn't just about avoiding harm, it's about embracing wisdom, resilience, and personal growth to align with the Stoic principles of living virtuously. Toxic relationships often reveal themselves through consistent patterns: manipulation, disrespect, or a persistent drain on your emotional energy. These signs are your guideposts, signaling when a connection no longer serves your well-being. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what's within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses. You can't change others, but you can choose how to engage with them. Start by observing your relationships with clarity. Are they reciprocal? Do they align with your values? Reflection is the first step toward transformation. Once you've identified toxicity, communication is your next tool. Address issues openly but calmly, expressing your needs without blame. For example, if someone's behavior crosses a line, articulate how it affects you and what you expect moving forward. This isn't about confrontation, it's about asserting your dignity. Setting boundaries follows naturally. Boundaries aren't walls, they're gates that protect your peace while allowing healthy connections to flourish. Be clear about what you'll tolerate and what you won't. Consistency is key. Enforce these limits with actions, not just words. Sometimes, despite your efforts, walking away is the wisest choice. Letting go of a toxic relationship isn't defeat, it's an act of courage and self-respect. Stoicism reminds us to accept what we cannot change and focus on what we can, our own path to virtue. I've walked this road myself, cutting ties with people who drained my spirit. The result? Space for relationships that energize, challenge, and elevate me. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Your challenge now is to take stock of your connections. Reflect deeply. Which relationships lift you up? Which ones pull you down? Don't just think, act. Have that tough conversation, set that boundary, or, if necessary, step away. Let stoic wisdom guide you, emphasizing reason over emotion and virtue over fleeting comfort. Every step you take toward healthier dynamics is a step toward a more fulfilling life. This journey is ongoing. Growth doesn't happen in a single moment, it's a practice. Surround yourself with people who share your commitment to wisdom and strength. Engage with communities that inspire you to keep learning and evolving. Thank you for joining this exploration of Stoic principles and personal empowerment. If this resonates, share it with others who might benefit, and let's continue building a community dedicated to growth. Stay wise, stay strong, and keep walking the path of virtue together.